Inspire You on Air, the new beat of the Bay. You are inside of Sip and Chill Saturdays. I'm Almighty. We're stopping the music once again. Today, we have another candidate for the mayor of the city of Mobile. And joining us today for this hour to talk about issues and things that he'd like to talk about his platform, we have Judge Karlos Finley joining us. Judge Finley, welcome and good morning once again.
Good day, sir. Thank you very much.
We appreciate you taking out time of your busy schedule to stop by and talk with us about some issues. We had you on a couple months ago, so we do appreciate you allowing us to bring you back by again. We know things have changed as campaigns and the months can go by, things can come up. And so as usual, we kind of do things a little differently here, kind of start off. We're going to get into the crux of the matters, but got a quick, what is your favorite tourist spot in Mobile, Judge Finley?
In Mobile?
In Mobile.
You know, I would really have to say the rivers. In the city of Mobile, the rivers.
Break that down for our listeners.
Well, it could be Dog River.
Yeah.
I love the 3 Mile Creek. I would love to have a place on the Mobile River that would be really entertaining.
I understand. Okay, so you like the rivers.
I'm a water guy.
You're a water guy. Okay, that helps. Well, I mean, you're in Mobile. I mean, you know, got a lot of water around. makes a lot of sense. So, all right. You were here a couple months ago. You talked about some of the things you wanted to provide for the citizens if elected as mayor. Kind of give us a reminder. Let our listeners know what would be your top 3 priorities if elected as the mayor of Mobile?
Top 3, number 1, of course, is safety. Not just public safety, but safety from a perspective of, you know, violent crime as well as cleanliness and infrastructure.
Okay.
When we talk about our roadways, it's no surprise to anyone who lives here that it's very advantageous to drive a truck when you live in Mobile.
Good point.
Because of all of the issues, I'll say, with our roadways. It's really does not make sense. Unless you look into it, then it does make sense. So that would be number 1. Number 2 would be reducing the wealth gap between minority and female businesses and those traditional businesses that we have in our city, and AKA creating opportunities and more specifically giving notice to the opportunities that our city presents to those businesses so that we can shrink that wealth gap. And 3, I would like to make sure that, you know, the communities in our city that have traditionally not been given the attention that they deserve. You know, a big talk is annexation still.
Right.
And, you know, people ask me, are you for it or are you against it? And it's not for or against, it's against right now without a doubt, because we've got communities in our city that have been ignored for decades. And before we determine that we're going to move our geographic borders out, we've got to take care of what's within. So those would be my top 3.
Okay, safety, wealth gap, annexation. We had Mayor Stimpson on last week, and he did talk about, you know, annexation kind of took a step back with COVID and other things came up, but he did mention that depending on what the election outcome is, and there's, I believe, at a minimum, we could have 3 new council persons on the council. That annexation is going to come back up. So as you talked about it, that's definitely a priority that has to be dealt with.
Most definitely.
One of the things you talked about, safety. We talked about it earlier when you hear about violence and what's going on in the city. Voters continue to say overwhelmingly their top concern is public safety. You made it your number 1. And the violence in the city. It's a major concern. The city's murder rate right now is pacing ahead of last year's numbers. And a couple months ago, we had almost a 5, 6, 7 day streak where we had murders almost every day. The mayor has proposed allocating $5.1 million of his People's First plan toward gun violence prevention and response. What is your take on the plan? Do you feel this is the right way to address these particular issues with them taking a certain amount of the money from the American Rescue Plan and applying it in his People's First plan?
Well, certainly there's an issue relative to resources and finances, but it's not a situation you can just throw money at. It's not a situation where you can police or arrest your way out of. In other words, just hiring more police officers is not going to do what we need done. Providing for the nonprofits that create opportunities for our youth will help that situation. See, the problem is that we've got a generation of younger people who don't feel like anyone cares about them. So they, in turn, don't care about anyone else. They don't feel like anyone is going to help to provide opportunities for them, so they are simply taking opportunities where they present themselves. And oftentimes, those opportunities come within an illegal realm.
Okay.
And oftentimes, that's played out in violent ways. Now, you have to understand having the need to have someone to help you in order to really understand how to alleviate this situation. If you've never had a time in your life where where you've needed someone or anyone around you has needed someone, and when I say needed, I mean you don't have no money, you don't have anything, you need somebody to help you. If you've not been around this, it's very hard for you to address that.
Okay.
If you've had everything in your life, you've inherited everything in your life, you don't understand people needing things. Okay. So when you make it a line item budget to just cut on a nonprofit, you don't understand the ramifications that are going to come from that. So 7.5 years ago, the administration made a lot of cuts on our nonprofit organizations that provide help to our youth. Well, now they're getting the return on that lack of investment by the violence that's playing out in our community. We have got to reinvest in our nonprofits that fill in the gaps for children who don't necessarily have parents. We can't just go around saying, parents, you got to do the right thing. Yeah, you do, but sometimes they just don't. And if they don't, we've got to have something there to fill in the gap, to teach those children conflict resolution, because that's the heart of gun violence and violence in general, is the lack of understanding of how to resolve conflict. So money can help, but it's got to be more than that. We've got to bring some funds back into Wave Transit, because again, having the ability to transport yourself to work and back is a big deal, and everybody doesn't have a car. But if you've never been in that situation or know anyone in that situation, you wouldn't understand that situation. It's just a line item to you to either cut or to grow. And many of these are the types of things that are going to contribute to the lack of gun violence. There's also technology out there that can help us. But we've got to have police officers living in the communities in which they serve, so that they know the individuals, and the individuals know them. There's an interaction there when it's not something bad. That's immensely important in order to curb this gun violence, this violence as a whole, because gun violence is just a result of violence in and of itself. And so we've got to have officers who live in the communities that they serve. We've got to have employees in the executive level of the city of Mobile who live in the city of Mobile. You can't work for this city under Finley administration if you don't live in it.
I gotcha. You talked about the wealth gap as one of your top priorities if elected as mayor, and I know in the People's First plan that has been presented by the mayor and his particular group, there's been, I'm not going to call it backlash, but some attention brought by certain segments here in town concerned about some of the funds using to rehabilitate the Gafers building rather than really focus on, as you talked about, getting people in the community. What's your take on that? I know there's been a lot of Zooms, a lot of, they haven't finalized exactly yet. What is your take on it?
So I'm a really foundational kind of person, and I like to simplify messages. The title of the act that President Biden supplied this monies through is the American Rescue Act. It's for rescuing. It's not the American Investment Act. If someone wants to refurbish the Gafers building, then by all means, I'm 100% in support of them doing so, but not with money that's designed to rescue people. So, the company that the mayor is suggesting that we use has developed housing properties all over the South, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, some in Alabama and Montgomery. They've spent over $603 million in doing such. Why do they need our 8? It's a $27 million project. Why do they need our $8 million to rescue people in order to invest in that property?
We appreciate that. We're talking with Judge Karlos Finley. He's running for the mayor of City of Mobile, election coming up August 24th. Judge Finley, while you're out and about campaigning, what are voters telling you? What things need to be done to improve the quality of life in Mobile? What are you hearing from constituents out there?
Well, yesterday we actually canvassed the Tolmanville area, which is an area that I grew up in. And in going through the area, you see the vacant lots. You see the vacant houses. As the current administration puts it, the secured houses. Secured means it's boarded up and no one can access it, but it's still vacant. And you see ditches along the side of St. Stephen's Road. Right. So, when talking to people, number one, the public safety issue comes out. Number two, they want an investment in the infrastructure within their communities so that it looks like it's a 21st century city as opposed to a 19th century city, because that's what ditches were. Right. And that's 19th century. We're trying to bring our communities into the 21st century. And on that note, infrastructure certainly has its traditional meaning, but we've got new types of broadband, for instance. So last year, the pandemic really showed a lot of situations that has disenfranchised many people. One of which was, children having to go to school virtually. Well, some children didn't have internet in their areas. So now you've got children going to, Starbucks, McDonald's, a bus stop to do their homework and to do their schoolwork. And there's no reason that a city with a $40 million rainy day fund, that's aside from the $58 million that we're getting in the Rescue Act, should have broadband issues within the city. As you well know, or you may not know, we do a weekly Finley Friday live event on Facebook Live. Sometimes we go down to Art Walk on Fridays to do that event. Well, we get shut down because the infrastructure, internet is so weak. It cuts out our entire program because there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of folk on the internet. And so we've got to repair things like that to make our city a 21st century city.
Talking with Judge Karlos Finley. He is running for the mayor of the city of Mobile. You were here last time, Judge Finley. We talked about, is it Alabama, is it Auburn? I think you told me you spent some time growing up, was it in Michigan?
That's correct.
So is it Big Blue or is it Go Sparty? Which one is it for you then?
Oh, it's Big Blue. It's Go Blue. It's Go Blue. Yeah. No Spartans. No, we'll do things green. So it's all blue.
We see which way you're leading that way.
Look, you don't want me to sing "Hail to the Victors" in here, okay?
Oh, it's no problem. It's no problem. But I just
learned it in 5th grade.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because last time you're here in the South Alabama Auburn, but in Michigan it's Michigan or Michigan State, one of the two. So
unlike my position here in Alabama, whereas I will root for Auburn as long as they're not playing Alabama, I never root for Michigan State.
There you go. So you are blue through and through then.
A square, brother. A square.
Keep it right here. We're going to have more with Judge Finley as we interview him this hour. We are stopping the music. It is a special hour inside of Sip and Chill Saturdays. We're talking with Judge Karlos Finley. He's a candidate for the mayor of the city of Mobile. Don't move. More is headed your way with Inspire You on Air, the new beat of the Bay. Inspire You on Air. This is the new beat of the Bay. You're inside of Sip and Chill Saturdays, and we have stopped the music this hour. Almighty has Judge Karlos Finley with me. He's a candidate for the mayor of the city of Mobile. We do appreciate you taking out time in your busy schedule, Judge Finley, to stop by and talk with us this hour. Tell me this. What is your hidden talent, Judge Finley?
Wow, I don't know if I can share that with you, but
okay.
It's I would think probably playing guitar. A lot of people don't realize that I play guitar and sing a little bit. So
now you do electric or acoustic?
Both.
Guitar? Okay.
Yes.
And you say you sing a little bit.
So, a little bit.
Okay. First tenor, second tenor, baritone, or?
I've got a little range.
All right. Okay. All right. Well-versed young man. We're talking with Judge Karlos Finley about some issues and questions that voters and listeners want to know. You brought up about Finley Fridays. I can't recall. Is it Tire Tuesdays, a Thursday, Tire Thursday, where you
Tuesdays.
go around. How are the tires and Finley Fridays? How's all that going for you?
So Tire Tuesdays,
Tire Tuesday, that's it.
was such a resounding success that Firestone stopped accepting tires.
From you or just
From
period?
anybody.
So you overwhelmed them, I see. Wow.
But there is a service with the city that we connected since it became so important that a young lady named Penelope, there is a website and email that one can call and they'll come out and pick up tires. So I stopped picking them up because Firestone stopped taking them. But when I see them, I will give her a call and shoot her an email. And I was over in Trinity Gardens about 2 weeks ago and I picked up a few tires, and this is when I learned that Firestone would not take them any longer. Because I ended up at Firestone, and they were like, "No, sorry." I said, "Well, can you just take this last load?" I mean, they said, "Yep, well, you can drop the last load." But there were 2 places where there were tires stacked up, 10 or 15. And so I gave her an email, and she immediately responded and was able to get out there and get those tires picked up.
Okay. And Finley Fridays, you talked about it in our last segment as we wrapping up. You say you go down to load of artwork. Give the listeners an idea, what is Finley Fridays and how does that work?
So Finley Fridays is an opportunity for anyone and everyone to directly engage with me as candidate for mayor for the city of Mobile. It's unscripted, it's live, so there's no edging around issues. I am there to address any issues that anyone would wish to talk about. It's done Facebook Live. And so, for me, it's what public service should be about, which is responding to the public, giving the public the opportunity not just to ask me questions, but to offer suggestions. See, I'm not the kind of person who I know everything. That's not me. I know that we've got great, resourceful people within our city, and unfortunately, oftentimes they're not being listened to. So Finley Fridays gives everyone an opportunity to log on, speak with me, offer me suggestions, as well as to offer any questions that they may have. It was great last week. Someone asked me, they said, "Now, listen, you're doing this every Friday. Are you going to do this after you're elected mayor?" See what I mean? And so I've got to respond to that. And I did. And I said that, maybe not as often as every week, but it's certainly something that I will continue to do, maybe bi-week, bi-monthly, or maybe monthly. Depends upon the workload, but I will certainly continue to do that and interact live with folk within our city.
And what time does Finley Fridays take place?
6 p.m. to 7 p.m. But here of late, we've had to add a few minutes, man. Folks don't want to let me go, so which I'm grateful for, and we don't mind adding a few minutes or even an hour. I think
like
once
at church, they're going past the time.
Right. It was like in conclusion.
During your first interview, when you stopped in with us, we kind of hit this question at the top, so I'll bring it up right now as we're kind of talking about your interaction in public service. Explain to our listeners, you are a municipal judge here in the city. How is it that you're a judge and you're looking to be the mayor and you're an attorney in law? Just give us that brief answer so folks can understand. I thought he was a judge. Why ain't running for mayor? Help him out.
Well, I'm fortunate to be able to wear many hats, but once elected mayor, I will only wear one hat, and that will be the mayor of the city of Mobile. So I am an attorney, and I own my own firm, my own business, but I'm a part-time municipal court judge. So I sit on the bench 3 times a week for the city of Mobile, excuse me, as well as run my law firm. Because I am a municipal court judge, there is a Judicial Inquiry Commission order that says that I can also run for an elected position outside of the judiciary. So that's what I'm doing. And once I'm elected, then I will move away from my judgeship, and I'll also move away from my law practice.
All right. Judge Finley, give the listeners your website for your campaign right now while we have this.
Outstanding. Yes, it is FinleyForMayor2021.com. That's FinleyForMayor2021.com. We are also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
All right. Last Saturday, Mayor Stimson stated that his biggest disappointment in office so far has been the ins and outs of affordable housing. What would you say has been his biggest disappointment in the administration?
Well, I think we have to go back to his promises. Mm-hmm. And so when we look at his promises, the biggest one that he ran on we'll be the safest, most business and family friendly city in America by 2020. And it's 2021, and we're not even close to that. It's been a dismal failure. We can't ignore that. Also, when this mayor first ran, he said that he was not for annexation. That is a quote. Right. He said, I don't think annexation is the key to our financial needs. And now he's running on annexation. So some might call that a flip-flop. Mm-hmm. And I want our citizens to look at our records. We have to run on our records. He's got a record, and he's got to stand up to that. Right now, we've got problems in the city animal shelter. We've got problems with employment for our public works departments. Right. I have had the opportunity to speak to so many city employees who tell me, listen, we're understaffed and we're being overworked. And that's a morale issue. And it affects how those who handle our city services do their jobs every day. And that's a dismal failure. So certainly the public safety issue is number one, right, because we've got people who are dying. And you mentioned a minute ago about, the numbers. As of last Tuesday, we were at 27 homicides. Yeah. Year to date, we were at 20 last year. That's right. Too many.
Pacing ahead.
But assaults, we were at 124 as of last Tuesday. We were at 59 last year. Robberies, 123 this year. We were at 95 last year. Those are all very violent crimes.
Right.
And assaults, for people who don't realize it, a gunshot wound is an assault.
Correct.
So if the person doesn't die, it's listed as an assault. We're up over 50%. So that's something that has to be reckoned with.
You talked earlier about the Gafers building as I asked you about the particular plan, the People's First plan. We know blight in older sections of the city remain, and the mayor's People's First plan it's come under scrutiny, as we talked about. What would be your take on handling the blight, or if you were able to get the American Rescue Plan money instead of, say, going to the Gafers building, how would you address blight here in the city? Because you just talked about tires over in Trinity Garden.
Correct. So first thing we have to realize is that the oldest parts of our city are the ones that can yield the greatest return because infrastructure is already there. And we've got to invest in those. Now, when we talk about rescuing the ARP, we've got to determine, is this air property or are there people occupying these buildings?
Okay.
Because many of our blighted situations are air property that people don't even live in Mobile.
Define air property right quick for
our
listeners.
So air property is property that one has inherited. So maybe grandma lived here in Mobile,
right,
and then mom and dad moved to another city. You grew up in that city. Grandma passes. Mom and dad have passed. The property is now yours, and you've never even been to Mobile.
Right.
So we've got to make that determination first and foremost. Mm-hmm. If that be the case, there are operations that we can get that property. We can take that property. But the city of Mobile doesn't want to own property, nor should it want to own property. But we can utilize those properties. One of the initiatives that I've been speaking to in order to get police officers living in our communities and knowing our communities is providing government housing for our newly graduated academy
from the police academy.
Okay? Because I'm a veteran, and when you get out of boot camp, the first housing you get is government housing.
That's correct.
But sometimes that government housing isn't always on base.
Right.
Sometimes it's in a community near the base. So we could implement something of that nature. Now we've got police officers living in the communities. People in the communities are feeling safer. They know the police officers know them. If the city invests in that property, $40 million rainy day fund, and bring it up to stuff, now you're affecting property values in that community. Maybe others would like to come in and purchase properties within that community, refurbish those properties, live in those communities. Then we can convince grocery stores to move into those communities. Now we're fighting the food deserts that we're dealing with here in our city. And so these are things that evolve, but you've got to put a plan in place so that everybody wins. It can't just be a plan in place for someone who's opportunistic, someone who's close to someone with the information, and they get the information and they don't share it and they put their plan into place. That's how gentrification is injected into a community. See, the term gentrification on its basic sense is not necessarily bad. What's bad is when the information doesn't flow to all of the people who already live in the community so that they know what the plan is that's coming, so they can now apply for mortgages, second mortgages, to improve their properties so that they can move along with the incoming plan. And when you start talking about that, you've got to get into redlining. And for those who don't understand that, during the years of urban renewal, when African Americans and many minorities applied for loans, banks would not loan them money within certain areas that they had drawn a red line around. And so we've got to fight all of these kind of systemic issues that we've been dealing with for decades. And so all of that kind of rides on one another in order to get rid of these blighted properties and vacant properties. We've got mass vacant properties within our city. And look, we've also got some economic, opportunities with our creeks and our rivers and our water systems, and we've got to address that. I could get into, the advantages of having Amtrak here, because I think that it's quite ridiculous that we don't immediately say to Amtrak, "You're welcome, come to our city. Oh, by the way, you're going to increase the activity on our tracks. We need some infrastructure to help to build access to our riverfront. Do you mind, using these funds, your funds, to create some infrastructure so that we're not, hampered by the train track that's going to have greater opportunity." The biggest issue with our riverfront is that there's a train that runs alongside of it that can lock you out, or more importantly, can lock you in.
That's right.
But if you go up Beauregard Street, and those who haven't, please do, near the GM&O Railroad, you'll see a Bob Hope overpass. The overpass goes over the track, and it takes you north to the state docks.
Sure does.
Well, wouldn't it be great to have a south leg that would take us right into the convention center? And so we never get blocked in or out by the train again.
Right.
We only need 20 feet from the state docks.
Only 20 feet.
The standard width of a lane is 9 feet.
Right.
So if we've got 20 feet, we've got a lane going in and a lane coming out. There's no issues with the train anymore. Partnering with Amtrak could get that done.
We're talking with Judge Karlos Finley. He's a candidate for the mayor of the city of Mobile. We were just talking about blight, and earlier you talked about closing the wealth gap, the economic gap that exists. There's been, in the past few years, there's been a lot being done, if one want to call it, on the St. Louis street corridor. A lot of things going up. When you talk about blight and the wealth gap, how do you envision, if elected as mayor, to kind of make some things happen in some of the underserved areas? Because we know in some of the older parts of town, they were bustling back in the day as well. How do you feel about that?
So, I'm thankful to have caught the tail end of that.
Okay.
I was born in '65, and so I saw all of the businesses that were on what was then Davis Avenue, now MLK. I saw all the businesses that were on St. Stephen's Road. Many people don't realize that Washington Avenue was also, a business district. There was a movie theater and other things on Washington Avenue. But because of the way the city has grown, the investments have moved further west for business opportunities. And to ensure that business opportunities would not come to those streets, they built residences on them. So now MLK has residences up and down it. Washington Avenue has residences up and down it.
Right.
St. Stephen's Road, there's still some opportunity to increase business infrastructure there. And I think that it is necessary that we do so because that's the area that has the food desert in it. And so in order to serve those areas around the north side from, Tolmanville area to Crosstown, we've got to have some businesses in that area. So that would be my area that I would look to increasing, businesses, retail stores, things of that nature. Again, if we get the infrastructure right for the riverfront, it could increase some retail and entertainment industry down there on the riverfront as well. Because currently we don't have a restaurant on the riverfront. We don't have a store on the riverfront. And when you look at cities like New Orleans, Savannah, Chattanooga, Tennessee, you see that they're riverfront cities and their riverfronts are bustling with people and individuals because there's retail shopping and there's entertainment and things of that nature. So we've got to really bring our city up to speed when we talk about investing. And those areas, our riverfront areas, are the areas that are closest to the traditionally disenfranchised areas within our city. Maysville is one way.
Yeah, that's true.
And Crosstown and Tolmanville are the other way.
That's right.
And so when we do that, again, we're creating a circle so that people can continuously travel around in that circle, and we have retail and business choices in those circles. That's how we're going to bring our city to what it needs to be. Once we get all of those things done, then maybe we'll look at some annexation.
There you go. We're talking with Judge Karlos Finley, candidate for the mayor of the city of Mobile. You said earlier, unfortunately, Firestone has shut down your Tire Tuesdays. So I have to ask, are you a Ford, Chevy, or Dodge guy?
Oh, I'm a Chevy guy.
Heartbeat of America.
Nothing like it.
Like a rock.
If you hadn't heard it, put your foot on a Corvette.
So there you have it. He's a Chevy guy.
Turn the radio down, roll the windows down, and listen to that heartbeat of America.
We will be back with one more segment with Judge Karlos Finley. Keep it right here. You're inside of Sip and Chill Saturdays, a special hour. We're stopping the music as we talk to Judge Finley as he's the candidate for the mayor of the city of Mobile. You're locked in to Inspire You on Air, the new beat of the Bay. Inspire You on Air. You're listening to the new beat of the Bay. This is a special hour of Sip and Chill Saturdays. We're stopping the music to talk to candidates for the mayor of City of Mobile, and today is Judge Karlos Finley. Judge Finley, we talked about you're a Chevy guy, and with the Tire Tuesdays, you got shut down by Firestone. But can you give the email address if people are discovering tires nearby their place of residence?
I can, and I really appreciate you bringing this up because it is something that really blights a lot of our properties. That email is pompeya@cityofmobile.org. That's pompeya@cityofmobile.org. They do a great job of responding and getting those tires. Put them out near the curb.
Okay.
So if you see a tire laying in a vacant lot or somewhere, just bring it out to the curb. And then send that email to pompeya@cityofmobile.org, and they respond and grab those tires.
I'm glad you brought that up because we know as of recent times there's been an issue with trash pickup in the city and having to bring on some private contractors to kind of help out, and the vehicles aren't here, and now it's manpower is not there as well. So glad you brought that up because that's a specific thing I wouldn't want a homeowner to get in trouble with. You put your stuff out too early. I've known of folks in situations like that. I called them, they said they were coming. So,
exactly. And again, I've spoken to many sanitation workers over the last several months, and they have expressed to me how they are so short-staffed, and there's job fairs that are coming up and things of that nature so that we can address those issues. And there should have been one that just passed recently, but we need more of that because we've got people that we see walking around on the streets.
Right.
And so if there's an opportunity for them to come to work for the city of Mobile and the Public Works Department, Sanitation Department. Those are opportunities that we need to really be putting notice out so that folks are aware of.
Judge Finley, can you tell me what is the latest book that you've read?
Wow, the latest book that I've read, being a lawyer, you just read all the time.
You do.
And so I don't know that I've actually had the opportunity to read a specific book.
Okay.
But many treatises, and because there's so much going on in the world right now, I find myself reading so many articles. And, one of the things that's a hot button ticket that I don't run away from is CRT, critical race theory. And there's a lot of information out there now. And, there's a difference that I want to make sure that people understand between teaching history and teaching critical race theory.
I agree.
Critical race theory is actually a law school course. Mm-hmm. But teaching history must be taught accurately and truthfully. If there are some questions that come out in teaching that history as to why things are the way that they are, then we've got to address those. But I've been reading a lot on critical race theory here of late because it is such a topic of conversation. And again, things on broadband and communicating. So,
since your last interview with us, the I-10 River Bridge project has received some momentum, if you want to say, toward constructing possibly a truck-only bridge. This will be the first phase to address the traffic issue, with more coming. What is your stance on the measure as the MPO has decided they want to move forward with a truck-only lane right now?
I think it's a failed policy. Mm-hmm. I mean, just plain and simple, because I know truck drivers. And many have said, we're not paying $15 to go over that bridge. We'll find another way. Because what people don't understand is that there are many companies that don't just traverse that bridge once a day.
They go back and forth.
They go back and forth.
Yeah.
And so at $15 a lick, that's a significant increase in cost. Where do you think they're going to pass those costs on to? The consumer. They're not going to just eat that. And so I think that it's not a good idea to do such. I was reading recently about a bridge that was built in Louisiana, and they're not issuing any tolls in order to do so.
Okay.
With as much money, and this is another thing I want to really be patently clear. The money to build the bridge is money that we've paid already. Mm-hmm. It's tax money. It's government money. I don't want people to start thinking that just because money's come from the federal government, that it's not ours. That's our money. We paid those taxes. So now with a toll, you're asking us to pay again.
Right.
Money doesn't just fall out of the sky like manta. The monies that the government spends are monies that we as taxpayers have paid in. So we're already paying for the bridge.
Speaking of the bridge, Africatown is really big now. What would you envision for the community of Africatown? There is a lot going on, Africatown, Clotilda. It's a lot going on.
I'm so glad you asked, because I'm the president of the Friends of the African American Heritage Trail,
right,
which is an organization started by my sister Dora, and we've been talking about Clotilda since publicly, nationally and internationally, since 2005. Mm-hmm. We unveiled the first marker at the Plateau Cemetery, as well as Union Baptist Church, back in 2010.
And this on the Dora Finley.
This is on the Dora Franklin Finley African American Heritage Trail.
Okay.
And so I'll never forget Ms. Lorna Woods, who is a descendant, said, "This is our Super Bowl. We thought no one would ever recognize us out here in Africatown." And so from, in the 11-year span since that's been, it is great to see the recognition being given to Africatown, because let's face it, this is a 160-year-old story.
That's right.
So this isn't new, but when my sister revealed it, and everybody go out and view The Order of Myth. It is a film doc by a local Mobilian, and that was where my sister Dora spoke to the schooner Clotilda, Timothy Mayer, and his dastardly bet for the first time publicly.
Right.
That was in 2006. So to see what's happening now is really music to my ears.
Okay.
Should have happened a long time ago. The fact that we actually found the ship turned the tide, so to speak. And I'd like to see a to-scale model of the ship in the valley across the street from the cemetery, so that much like the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, people can visit an actual slave ship and see what it was like for people to be encapsulated in, holds in a ship for 3 months on the ocean. If you've gone to Legacy Museum in Montgomery, you'll see that they have holding pens with holograms in there, and they talk to you and they tell you what they're going through. Well, imagine if we had a holding pen on that ship with holograms in there telling you what it's like, what they're going through, what their lives were like in Africa, what their lives are like on this ship. That's a moving international experience that will bring the world to the city of Mobile. And once they're here, then they can explore all of the other things that we have to offer in our city. Africatown is a peninsula. So sure there's water all around it. I told you I'm a water guy.
Back to your water.
Okay? And so there are opportunities for attractions to engage with the water that surrounds this community. They used to have baptisms in Africatown many, many moons ago. And what a lot of people don't realize too is that there are several different communities within Africatown.
It is.
So you've got Magazine Point, you've got Plateau, you've got Lewis Quarters. And so those are all different kind of tribes. So my grandfather came to Plateau in 1918.
Okay.
That was where he set up his second medical practice after leaving Evergreen, Alabama. And so our family has been exposed and been a part of Africatown since long before I was born. Because again, he gave medical services to those Clotilda Africans. Because Kazula did not pass until 1935. And so he was there, my grandfather was there in 1918 providing medical services to that community.
Ironic you say you envision if they could remodel the ship. Two of the most poignant things I've ever seen in my life. I have been to the Battle of Vicksburg site in Vicksburg where they have the actual ship there. And I've been to the Whitney Plantation in Louisiana, Wallace, Louisiana.
Yes.
And I would tell, and I've been to EJI, Equal Justice, but that Whitney Plantation is something else. It really encapsulates from the, not very many plantations tell the
whole story
from the slave side of the story. So when you talked about those pens, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
So I would encourage our listeners to definitely check out.
It's important that we know that history in its totality.
Yeah.
It's important. And it's also important that the slave owner's perspective be presented, because that's the biggest piece that's missing thus far.
That's a part of history.
No one from the slave owner's side has stood up and spoke.
We talked about that. So you're right now. Your vision. You kind of like what you're seeing with Africatown. You looking.
Sure. Yeah. Anything that's going to breathe life into that community that's been nothing but exploited since its beginning, because then industry moved in. And again, exploitation. It's time for Africatown to be given the respect that it deserves.
We're speaking with Judge Karlos Finley. He's a candidate for the city of Mobile. And one thing that affects cities, and we've seen it now a lot with different things going on with especially African Americans and cameras and body cam. Would you have a plan to ensure development for law enforcement practices that would include more openness to the public? Example, access to body cam footage, clear procedure, protocol explanations for why things happen and we can't get an answer, and why must we wait 8 months to get an answer?
So, as an attorney, I certainly understand the need for sometimes there to be evidence not released immediately. Okay. Because I'm a former assistant district attorney. And if you've got an open investigation, if you just spew all of those things out there, it could deter the opportunity for you to catch the individual.
That is very true. That is very true. Very true.
But policies should be released to everyone. The police officers, the police department belongs to the people.
Right.
It's not some outside entity. And every part of government belongs to the people. So the people should be aware of whatever policies are in place by our law enforcement. I don't even think that should be a question. It always really astounds me that when asked about a policy, a police chief will say, well, we can't release that information. Well, why can't you? It's a policy. In other words, how are people going to know how they should act if they're not aware of the policies?
Policy, right.
So that's kind of a catch-22. Now, when we start talking about technology, I want us to be able to utilize technology as much as we possibly can. One of the pieces of technology that's really on the front lines right now is the ability to geotrack gunshots.
That's shot spotter.
That's just one. Shot spotter is like the term jacuzzi.
Okay.
Spa is what it is.
Correct.
Jacuzzi is a company that makes spas. So shot spotter, there's also Eagle that allows one to geotrack gunshots, the location, even down to the caliber of weapon that's firing the shot. But here's the thing: once that technology is brought about by the shot, then it begins to record, and it also records voices.
So that's conversation.
So you're talking about privacy issues now.
Right.
So, but again, I think the technology is sound, but we've got to give notice, and we've got to let people know, hey, these are in your area. They could be in your area, because we can't really let people know exactly where they are either. It will defeat its purpose. But we need to let people know that it's possible that this is in your area. If a shot is fired, it will begin to record. It's activated, and you need to know that as a citizen so that you're aware of that. So when we do it in that fashion, I think that it's sound, because it also acts as a preventative. Because at the end of the day, we want to prevent crime. We're not just about catching people, because when you catch them, it's too late. The person is either shot, they're already dead, whatever the case may be. So, but I think that people will think twice about shooting if they know that that technology will record it, and it reacts in seconds. So we've also got to have officers in the area so that they can respond to that information. So it's not just about a specific piece of technology. It's utilizing that technology in conjunction with our police officers and our citizens. I think the theme that I've been speaking to is systems working together. That's the key to having a successful community, that people, tools, systems are all working together. We've got to chew bubble gum and, walk at the same time. Now, I can chew bubble gum, walk, play guitar, and sing at the same time.
Okay.
So I'm all up for this endeavor.
All right, Judge Finley, we appreciate you stopping by. We're going to be wrapping it up. A couple last questions here. As of this interview airing, we are 1 month away from the election. What things are you and your campaign doing to get voters ready for Election Day?
We are getting out into the communities as we have, making in-person engagements with as many citizens as we possibly can, making sure that they understand when voter registration starts, when it ends, absentee ballots, when it starts, when it ends, the opportunity to cast your absentee ballot, how to request an absentee ballot. Gaining access to the vote to as many people as possible is our goal. We're not looking to suppress people's votes. We're looking to increase the opportunity for people to cast their ballots. And we'd love for them to cast them for us, but the most important thing is that you participate. That's what this system is all about.
Judge Finley, we'll wrap it up with this. When you're out of town, how do you describe Mobile to others?
I describe Mobile to others as one of the most beautiful cities that I've ever had, with as friendly people as you ever wanted to meet. And the food is amazing, like you've never had anywhere else, and diverse, because when I say diverse, I'm talking about geographical diversity.
Correct.
We've got a downtown area where you can have a great time on the streets. We've got, within 20 minutes, you can be in the Delta of the Mobile River Delta, where 5 rivers flow into our bay. And you can also get on the 3 Mile Creek. Within 5 minutes of our downtown area, you jump in a kayak or a canoe, you start rowing, 10 minutes in, you don't even realize you're in Mobile anymore.
Right.
And then we've got beaches. The Gulf of Mexico is right there, 40 minutes from downtown Mobile, with a little traffic. And so that's how I describe it to them. And I also tell them that it's hot, it's steamy, and so don't bring a whole lot of clothes with you when you go.
There you go. Before we go, mention your website one last time.
Certainly. It is finleyformayor2021.com. That's FINLEYFORMAYOR2021.com. Log on. We have volunteer opportunities that are available. We want to hear from you. And don't forget to tune in to Finley Fridays from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday evening on Facebook at Finley for Mayor 2021.
All right, Judge Finley. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck on the election.
Thank you, sir. Greatly appreciate it. Always a pleasure to come and talk with you.
Thank you, sir. Headed your way, Seafood Gumbo with DJ Luke. Get yourself ready. You're listening to Inspire You on Air. It's the new beat of the Bay.